Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir, audible.
Okay, so 1 second. Okay, so today's topic is finite element analysis of composite materials using proprietary software. Specifically, I want to explain how composite materials can be modeled using ANSYS. And my presentation has two sections. I'm actually planning to do the first session as a preliminary, that is what is happening behind the software, and the second session, practically how we can do it, how we can model the composite materials using the ANSYS software. Okay, before running into that, the practical session, I just want to introduce what is composite material. So before that, I will ask you a question, that is, how much iron ore left in Earth? Because what is the significance of a composite material? Because a prediction from Australian mining department came, and it says by 2070 we will run out of the iron ore, and so we have to rely on some other materials. We have to find out some new materials to replace the conventional materials. And even though it will last for 2070, but the price rise will happen. It's already happened, and we can see the increasing, that's a price, the amount, the cost of the conventional materials are day by day increasing. So we have to rely on some other materials. A beautiful answer to this, it is a composite material. So composite, what is composite material? Which means a composite material is composed of two or more constituent materials that are typically made of multiple layers. That is, there will be two materials which will combine together, and it's not mixing between these materials, but it will be separately in its constituent form, but it will be mixed together to get a new material. And the constituents have two parts. The first part is a matrix part. The second part is a reinforcement part. So this matrix part can be from a synthetic one or from a natural one. Which means we can use a bio matrix or a synthetic matrix. Those types of flexibility is given by the composite, and it also applicable to reinforcement also. We can use biological or naturally occurring reinforcements like bamboo or fiber, kaya fiber, or anything we can use, or we can directly go for synthetic type, that is, for example, carbon fiber or glass fiber. Those we can use. So it's a best alternative to conventional material, because we can engineer this material to our requirement. That is the beauty of it. And the figure shows it's actually a carbon fiber layer from we can make a carbon fiber composite. And when we talk about its application areas, it's actually adopted in the wide areas. For example, if you go into aerospace, you can see the wings of the aeroplanes is manufactured with the composite materials, and sports cars and sports like a badminton racket, all those things, it's manufactured from with the help of composite materials. And it also applied in wind energy. Then it also used for sports and recreation purposes, motorsport, construction, automotive, marine area, defenses, and many more areas we are looking into. The researchers are going to find out how we can use these composite materials. Even in the medical industry also, it uses a lot of composites nowadays. So the composites, it's actually the next future. We can say it's the next future to the materials. And what composite materials, as I already explained, it is actually a mix of two materials, so two or more materials have quite a different properties. The difference between an alloy and a composite is that they do not dissolve or blend. In alloy, we can see it's actually blended one or dissolved one, but in composite material, if we split that material, if we break that material, we can see the distinct form of the constituent materials. So that is a speciality of composite materials. And if we mix these materials together, we will get a unique properties. Even we can set the properties in the desired direction. For example, in particular direction, I want a high strength, and the other direction, the perpendicular to that direction, if I don't want any if I want a lesser strength, we can manufacture a material like that. And sometimes I can change the density by altering the constituents. So much opportunities are there. So that's why composites are much promising future. So before starting the analysis of the composite, we must understand two things: what is an isotropic and orthotropic material, because composites basically it's treated as an orthotropic material. And normally for the analysis, if we take it as a plane stress analysis, we will take it as a transversely isotropic material. Sorry. The isotropic, which means all the properties are same in all directions. Orthotropic, which means the directions will be the properties will vary depends upon the three mutually perpendicular directions. And most of the time our analysis is based on orthotropic properties, or we will treat composite material as an orthotropic material. The in reality, in fact, we speak about composites, we can see it's an isotropic material, but for our analysis easiness, we will treat it as an orthotropic material. And sometimes for the some analysis, for example, if you take the case of particulate composite, we can assume it as an isotropic with some with a small variation in accuracy. So most of the conditions, we will take it as an orthotropic material for our analysis. And basically, there are three approaches to do an analysis for a composite. The first one, microscopic, mesoscopic, and macroscopic. So here in this lecture, I'm going to focus on microscopic scale, because most of the researchers and the academic side, we are interested in microscopic scale, microscopic analysis. So I will explain from a microscopic point of view. So this is actually a microscopic scale, which means this is actually, we will calculate the composite properties, that is mechanical properties of the composite based on its constituents, that is fiber and the matrix. If fiber, we can consider it as a reinforcement. The matrix, it is a gluing thing, which actually keeps the fibers in its position. So this is like a gluing thing. Can you see my mouse? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, so the matrix can be treated as the gluing one, and fiber we can treat it as a reinforcement. So if we combine these two things together, these two different materials together, we'll get a composite. And what is its composite mechanical properties that we are calculating, or we will calculate with respect to the macroscopic approach. So the mechanical properties, if you purely consider it as an elastic region, we can see Young's modulus and Poisson's ratio are taken as the elastic properties for an isotropic material. And fiber, if you take the case of fiber, most of the time we will take the constituent material as an isotropic material, because if we take an orthotropic material, we have to do a lot of tests on this fiber and matrix. We have to find out the properties. It is actually doing in industry, but most of the research purpose from the academic side, we will treat the constituent material as an isotropic one. And to find out the elastic region mechanical properties, we will first find out the mechanical properties of the fiber. Most of the time that will be Young's modulus and Poisson's ratio. And the matrix, for the matrix, the same we will find out. And using some equations, microscopic approach, we will use some equations. For example, rules of mixture, Halpian-Tsai equations. Those equations we will use, and we will find out the composite material property, and which we will eventually use it for the finite element analysis. Because most of for finite element analysis, we need to solve equations. We need material properties to solve the equations. Then there are some terms associated with the composite, especially in FEA and the composite analysis. The matrix, as I already explained, it's a homogeneous base material which will be acting as a gluing substance. Glue, you can consider it as a glue, which actually keeps the fibers in the position. And the second one, lamina, which is actually a sheet usually made up of the fibers. So you can consider it as a surface one. From the analysis perspective, if we say, you can consider it as a shell element or the surface element. And the third one, it is laminate. If we combine these laminas, together, we will get laminate. Actually, the original manufacturing process is also similar to this one. First, we will create the lamina, then we will create the laminate by some techniques like a hand layup or a pultrusion. Some techniques we will create it, and the same approach is also followed for the property calculations. So lamina is the layer one, and laminate is the stack up or the layers which we will combine to get the laminate. And we can actually place the lamina, because the advantage of lamina is that we can actually orient the fibers in our required direction. Suppose I want a strength in this direction, this L direction, I can keep the fibers in that direction, more fibers in that direction, so I'll get more strength in that direction. And in the T direction there will be a lesser strength when we compare with the L direction. So similarly, if you want to create a multiple strength, the strength in multiple direction, we can create different layers: layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, layer 4, and each layer we can actually change the direction of the fiber. So we'll get a complete it's a strength in the required directions. So this is actually we are actually creating the material to our requirement. That is not possible with the conventional material. Most of the conventional materials, because most of the conventional materials are isotropic, so we have to if you want to reduce the density or if you want to reduce the weight in some direction, we have to do some other techniques. But here we can easily control that with the help of these laminas and laminate concept. And we will combine with the help of matrix, we will combine it together and we will make the laminate. Actually, the laminate is our composite material most of the situations. And the positive features of the composite designs are its oriented stiffness and strength properties, because we can create the stiffness and strength in the required directions, and we can also adjust the material properties like Young's modulus and Poisson's ratio if we alter the constituent materials. And we can also modify the parameters like the fiber volume fraction, the layer thickness, and the stacking sequence. All those things we can actually modify. That is not possible with conventional materials. And we can also reduce the weight when we compare with the conventional materials, because most of the the main attractive features to composite material, it is a reduced weight to strength ratio. And we can also increase the stiffness if we want. And it is also high fatigue resistant. If there is any cyclic load, it will resist beautifully more than the conventional material. For example, carbon fiber, we will discuss what type of material which is used for the applications. We will discuss it more. Then, one second. The negative features, actually, I will fast step through the slides because I think the 2 hours is given to me. So I want to complete the first session in 1 hour and the second session in 1 hour. So I will rush through the slides. So normal negative features are the low stiffness and strength perpendicular to the fiber direction, because when we increase the strength in a particular direction, obviously the directions perpendicular to the axis of reinforcement or the reinforcement orientation will be low when compared with the main direction. It is actually a positive one, but sometimes it will be negative, because in case of conventional materials, if we need both in all directions, we need the same properties, definitely we have to rely on conventional materials. But that is also treated as a negative one when we compare with the conventional materials. And anisotropic thermal strain behavior is also there. So there will be irregular strains, depends upon the directions, and there will be low interlaminar shear stiffness and strength. So which means there may be chances for debonding and delamination. So laminas can split or laminates can separate. So it is actually negative of composite materials. And long-term durability is also that is when it is exposed to a moisture, because most of the time this gluing substance will be a plastic, a polymer or epoxy. So most of the time the moisture content, the effect of moisture content on the reinforcement, or if the composite is exposed to some moisture, high moisture or high humidity environments, there may be chances to disintegrate the fibers. If it actually depends upon the type of fibers, so those types of difficulties also there. And the heat resistance is a major concern for fiber reinforced composites, because most of the time the matrix will be a polymer or epoxy, which is not good for heat resistant applications. So that's why if you are considering application of composite materials in marine field, there is actually a system, SOLAS, that is safety of life at sea, which restrict the use of composite materials. Even if it is a carbon fiber or glass fiber, which restrict the use of composite materials in marine environment, because no combustible substances are allowed to manufacture a ship. So boats or the low vessels, apart from the ship, if you consider a boat or something like that, we can easily use it. But if you are going for a real ship-like structures, it is not currently it is not allowed to use the material. Then undesirable brittle failure will occur. It is actually a question to our safety concepts when we use a composite material for designs. Then these are some more negative features of composite material. Actually, I'll move on to the next session because I want to discuss more about the analysis part. So this is actually the classification of composites. I will just touch upon these slides. That is, what are the different types of composites. So first one, particle reinforced composites, where particles are mixed with the matrix. One simple example is reinforced concrete. You can consider the metals are as a particle, and concrete, the cement as the gluing material, that is a matrix. And the second one, fiber reinforced composites, that is short fiber reinforced. It depends upon the length of the composite, and long fiber reinforced and endless fiber. It's also as a continuous type. Then this is actually a particle reinforced composites. And this is fiber reinforced composite. And this figure, it's a carbon fiber, and this figure, it's a glass fiber epoxy composite. And the fiber reinforced composites, again, it is classified into three types. Short fiber, you can see the fiber length is very long, and long fiber reinforced, and endless fiber reinforced one. And this is actually the orientation. It depends upon the type of orientation of fiber. It is a random oriented fiber. This is a continuous random oriented long fiber. This is random oriented short fiber. And how we can calculate, about the matrix and fiber materials. So there are matrix material, we can use thermosets, thermoplastics, metals, and ceramics. And fiber material, we can use glass, carbon, aramid, boron, ceramic, and hemp, flax. And this is actually a small list of fiber material and matrix, because there are a lot of research is going on what material we can use it for, the matrix and the fiber material. Because one such research is a natural fiber composite, where we can use a naturally occurring or natural a material based on natural origin, for example, like a sisal fiber or coir or hemp or flax. These things we can use it as a fiber material, which is actually a renewable type and sustainable. And the matrix material also, we can go for some bio-based matrices. A lot of research is going on the jackfruit, the paste. So those things, a lot of researchers are going on, and these are the materials still. Nowadays, we will use these types of materials, but a lot of materials are under research. And some cosmetic, that is, if you want to improve the aesthetics of the composites, we can use some gel coats. And most of the time, if you go to Decathlon, you can see cycles provided with the gel coats. So it is to just increase the aesthetic appearance, to give a cosmetic outer surface. We will use gel coats. And we can also use core material, that is foam, honeycombs, wood. These things are, we can use it as a core material for composite production. And also, we can arrange the reinforcement in a different manner. The first one, it is a unidirectional reinforcement. That is, the reinforcements are provided in only one direction. The second one, woven type, that is provided in both directions, that is X and Y direction. If we say fiber direction, parallel to fiber and perpendicular to fiber. Then it is mat type, and this is knit type, knit type and stitched type and braiding type. These are the some of the arrangements of reinforcement to make the composite materials. And these are some of the manufacturing methods: open molding, closed molding. Open molding means most of the time we'll do the operation in open environment. Examples are hand layup method, spray layup, filament binding. And closed molding purposes are processes are vacuum bag molding, vacuum infusion processing, compression molding, pultrusion, resin transfer molding, centrifugal casting. A lot of methods are there to manufacture the composite. And next, one more concept is there, that is when we are doing analysis in composite, we must consider draping if your geometry is a curved one. For example, from the figure you can see it's a hemisphere. So in this hemisphere, if we try to make a composite, so there will be wrinkles over the surface. So these wrinkles will directly affect uh, the output of that is the composite materials which is manufactured. So we have to consider the reduction of this draping, and there are a lot of parameters to consider this draping. And most of the softwares we can analyze how the draping will occur and what are the parameters which we want to consider for draping. And these are some of the draping effects. For example, trellis effect. In trellis effect, actually the expected orientation is this, like the fiber orientation is just like this one, but it will be when the draping happens, it will incline to some angle. So that is what is called as trellis effect. And fiber stretching, the fiber will be straight and it will pull the perpendicular directional fibers. It will push the perpendicular directional fibers, and that is fiber stretching effect. And fiber straining, the fiber, some of the fibers will strain, which will elongate. Those will happen. And fiber translation, that is most of the time we will expect a uniform distribution of fibers, but sometimes it will be some area it will be a concentrated one, some areas it will be an expanded one. So those types of effects are called as fiber translation. And the second type, you can see from this, it's actually side view of the composite. You can see the expected fiber is positioned like this, but due to this fiber translation, this will be just like this. So this is also a draping effect. And one more difficulty is there, that is if you want to do the analysis and or in the manufacturing section also, there will be pockets, resin pockets. Resin pockets means sometimes if there is any discontinuity or an angular change, angular discontinuity, there may be chances for voids, and all those voids, when we manufacture, the resin will be inside. So that resin will create a resin pocket, and most of the time it will affect the mechanical properties of the material. So that's why ply drop-offs are very important when we considering the analysis, considering the material for analysis. And next we will into the numerical methods to compute the mechanical properties and the analysis. So most of the numerical approaches is divided into three types, as I already explained: micro scale approach, meso scale approach, and macro scale approach. In micro scale approach, actually we will into the fiber level. Fiber level means we will inquire about the fiber properties and what is the interface and how the matrix is connected with the fibers. All those things we will analyze in micro scale. Meso scales, it's actually a laminar type analysis. We will interested in the ply level, and we will assume the ply is as a homogeneous material, and we will consider the laminate as a collection of plies, assemblage of plies. Then macro scale approach, we will consider it as a total solid, and we will have some property calculations based on this macro scale approach. And normally it is used for the high structure analysis. That is, if the geometry is very having high dimensions, so that is big in size, we will go for macro scale approach. Then most of the time, from the academic perspective, we will go for microscopic approach, microstructure of we will be interested in microstructure of the composites. And next, in this workshop, I am actually going to focus on this microscopic approach. Then about the direction of the plies. Normally, we will in any solid analysis we will assume x-axis, y-axis, and z-axis. But in a composite analysis, we will most of the time, if it is a fiber type composite, we'll take the first direction as the fiber direction, that is direction 1 from the figure, and second direction and third direction will be perpendicular to the fiber direction, and most of the time second direction will be parallel to the plane of the composite. So third direction will be normal to ply, and if you are taking transversely isotropic material, we will consider these two directions, 1 and 2, and we will ignore the third direction, is a direction. And the calculations for the mechanical properties is based on the fiber volume fraction. Most of the equations, if you look into those equations, you can see all comes up with the fiber volume fraction or volume fraction. Volume fraction which means how much fiber in the composite, how much matrix in the composites. So it's calculated based on how much fiber volume divided by total volume, and in the matrix perspective, how much matrix to the total volume of the composite. So we'll calculate the fiber volume fraction and the matrix volume fraction, and if you sum it together, that is VF is designated as a fiber volume fraction, VM is designated as a matrix volume fraction, VF plus VM will be equal to 1. So it is actually a percentage variation, that is how much percentage of fibers is in that composite, how much matrix is there. And one more percentage we will include if the analysis is if you want to do a realistic analysis, where the existence of voids, how much percentage of voids is in the composite. Okay. And it also, that is a calculation, it also depends upon the type of orientation or the distribution of the fibers. So unidirectional plies, so there will be different calculation, and wovens and fabrics, so there will be a small variation in the calculations. So it actually depends upon the type of orientation. And to calculate the mechanical properties, we have some equations, and there are actually two methods. First, by experiment we can find out the mechanical properties. Second thing, with the help of some numerical equations, we can also find the mechanical properties. So this is the rules of mixture. It is actually commonly used to find out the mechanical properties of composite materials, especially as fiber reinforced composites. We will use rules of mixture, and there is actually other types of equations is there, Halpian-Zai equations, periodic microstructure, and a lot of equations are actually under research to get an accurate prediction of the mechanical properties. So rules of mixture, it is actually used to find out the mechanical properties with respect to the constituent materials. Normally we will find out with the help of rules of mixture, we will find out two properties, that is in the fiber direction and the perpendicular direction, that is the perpendicular to the fiber direction. And most of the cases we will take our element or our geometry as a plane stress element. So we will assume its thickness is negligible. So when we compare it with the length and breadth of the geometry, that's why we will find out two mechanical properties in two directions, that is 1 and 2. This is the rules of mixture equation, and phi, it's EF1 and EM represents the Young's modulus in fiber and Young's modulus of matrix, and phi represents a volume fraction, because volume fraction of fiber plus volume fraction of matrix is equal to 1. So that's why volume fraction of the matrix is equal to 1 minus phi. So actually this is actually a representation of volume fraction into Young's modulus of fiber into volume fraction of matrix into Young's modulus of matrix. So that will give us the Young's modulus of the composite in first direction, that is fiber direction. Similarly, from this equation we can calculate the Young's modulus in second direction, and the shear modulus also we can calculate with this equation. And this is also a mixture of volume fraction and the shear modulus of matrix and fibers. So This is to calculate the shear modulus, and this is to calculate the Poisson's ratio. Poisson's ratio in 1-2 plane and 2-1 plane. And if we consider the constituents as isotropic materials, most of the time Poisson's ratio 1-2 is equal to Poisson's ratio 2-1. Both the Poisson's ratios will be taken as same in when we do our finite element analysis. And this is rules of mixture and by Jones, and there is also another type that is developed by Puck, and there is a small variation because we will add some more constants and some more values to match with the experimental results to Young's modulus in 2 directions and Poisson's ratio and shear modulus. Because when we use our analysis in a plane stress concept, we only need Young's modulus in 1 direction, Young's modulus in 2 direction, and Poisson's ratio in 1-2 and 2-1, and shear modulus in 1-2. So that's why we will calculate only these things. Actually, pure orthotropic concept, we need 9 constants, that is Young's modulus in 1, 2, and 3, Poisson's ratio in 1, 2, 2, 1, and 2, 3, and shear modulus in 1, 2, 2, 1, and 2, 3. That's why we and most of the application wise, if you observe, you can see it is actually plane stress concept. So that's why the majority of the composite analysis will be a plane stress approach. And there is also Halpian psi equations. There will be theta will be introduced, theta and eta will be introduced. Actually, it's a continuity factor, and this is actually when we find out our Young's modulus in both directions, and we can also find out with the help of experimental experiment the Young's modulus in fiber direction, matrix direction. When we compare these 2 values, that is from rules of mixture and the experiment, there will be a large variation between these rules of mixture. That's why there are more constants and coefficients are introduced to find out how much variation is there and to reduce that variation from the experimental results. And most of the time when I am doing my PhD work, I can find out periodic microstructure. That is actually it's not a rules of mixture, but periodic microstructure concept is there. If we adopt periodic microstructure, that is the most accurate one to predict these mechanical properties. Halpian psi is also just below that. It's low when we consider the accuracy level. It is actually lower than the periodic microstructure. But the calculation of periodic microstructure constants are very tedious process, very tough. So most of the time we will go for rules of mixture by Puck or Jones or Halpian psi equations, and that will be enough to do our analysis. And these are the equations. You can see different types of equations to find out E1, E2, Poisson's ratio at 1, 2, and shear modulus at 1, 2. Then what are the differences in analysis approach? Because most of the time we will consider composite as a homogeneous material, and sometimes we need a heterogeneous concept for our analysis. But 70 to 80% cases we will consider it as a homogeneous material. And as I already explained, isotropic material, that the properties does not vary with respect to orientation. So that approach we will leave when we introduce the composite material. And anisotropic material, a composite is purely an anisotropic material, but we will consider, for the sake of the easiness of our analysis, we'll consider it as an orthotropic material. So if we look into the analysis perspective, we can see the stress strain relationship. This is what is called as a stiffness matrix, and the elastic coefficient matrix. The elastic coefficient matrix is actually relates the stresses with the strains, and this is for the anisotropic material. And originally there must be 9 constants: sigma xx, sigma yy, sigma zz, sigma xy, yz, xz, and yx, zy, and zx. So we are assuming that a sigma xy is equal to sigma yx and sigma yz is equal to sigma zy. That's why we are reducing that into 6 into 6 matrix. And if we adopt a plane strain or plane stress approach, sorry, 1 second. This will be the reduction. We'll come to that. And this is actually the coefficient matrix for an orthotropic material. This is for an isotropic material, and if we move into orthotropic material, that will be reduced to this one, and the values are 1 by Ex and Poisson's ratio Ix divided by Ey, and these are the stiffness coefficients. And ANSYS like softwares, and ANSYS or Abaqus, whatever be the software, these softwares actually take the stiffness matrix, that is this coefficient matrix, and that is multiplied with the shape function matrix. There is one concept is called as a shape function. So we will get the total matrix that is called as a stiffness matrix in finite element analysis, and from that we will find out the force and displacements, and with the help of this equations. And normally we will use integral over the volume B transpose into this D matrix into the B matrix into dV, and if you multiply that, we will get the stiffness matrix, and that stiffness matrix we will utilize to find out the force and deformations. And once we got the deformations, with the help of strain displacement relations, we will find out the strains, and once we got the strains, we will find out we will use stress strain relationship to find out the stresses. That's the way a software works, or normally if you want to do analysis, we will do that, we will follow the same approach. And the challenges with the software, if you want to program a software, you have to find out, that is, you have to find out a program that assembles these stiffness matrices for elements. How many elements are there? Those elements you have to create the stiffness matrix individually, and you have to assemble it together. So that's the challenges if you want to develop a software. And transversely isotropic material, actually it is actually simplification. So simplification of orthotropic material, so that will be reduced to, that is, we will consider if it is a unidirectional, Ey and Ez is equal to same, we will consider. And similarly Poisson's ratio Xy and Poisson's ratio Xz is equal to, both are same. That is a concept for a transversely isotropic material. And our actually stiffness matrix reduces to 5 into 5. That's the beauty of the transversely isotropic concept. And most of our analysis, ANSYS also consider this transversal isotropic material. Not only ANSYS, Abaqus, and Astra, Cosmo, COMSOL, all those softwares will consider this transversal isotropic material, because we want to reduce our computational time. So we will, most of the time, if it is possible, we will adopt the simplification. And this is actually a figure from ANSYS composite pre-post, which is dedicated software for modeling the composites. So here you can see the shell surface. That is, I will show you in the second part of my presentation, I will show you how to do that in ANSYS. So there I will show you, if you create a solid or shell material, ANSYS will provide some layer of composites over the solid, in the surface of the solid, that the solid can be treated as a mold. If you're familiar with the manufacturing methods of composite, you can see that a mold is required for the composite manufacture. So the solids can be considered as a mold, and the composite is provided or created the surface of this over the surface of this mold, and that is an approach adopted by ANSYS. And this is the compliance matrix, that is the stress strain matrix, and this is the stress strain matrix for a plane stress concept. And when we reduce that into when we will actually reduce the anisotropic concept into this plane stress concept, so we will reduce this. So we only need S11, S12, S12, S22, and S44. And we can calculate the sigma x, sigma y, and the sigma xy. And I want to give you some information, that is, if you want to do open source software for programming, there is one textbook written, I don't remember the author because it's actually latest one. So in the textbook, the heading of the textbook is that micromechanics of composites by using open source software like MATLAB, Python. So if if you search that text there, the programming version, that is how to calculate this sigma x, sigma y, sigma xy, and the strains on xy direction and shear strain, all those concepts were programmed, and the code is also given in that textbook. So if you refer to that textbook, you can get a feel how this is working and why we are studying this compliance matrix and all these things. You can get more information from that textbook. Then the transformation, because most of the time when we are doing analysis, we use a local coordinate system for each and every lamina, but we need to convert that into a global coordinate system, because when we assemble these laminas together, obviously the answer, the mechanical properties and the strain stresses will be different for different laminas. So if you want to create a compliance matrix or a stiffness matrix, we need to convert that into global coordinate system. And this is the transformation matrix. You will multiply this with the local coordinate system information, then you will get the matrix will be converted to global coordinate one. This is the matrix for the composite material. And this is a transformation, that is, you will multiply the sigma x, sigma xy with the transformation matrix. Obviously, it will be converted to a global coordinate system. Then next, about our analysis in ANSYS. So in ANSYS, we will use a shell element, which means a surface element, two-dimensional element. And normally it is a four-noded element, and we can also have a quadratic element. Quadratic element means there will be mid-side nodes. So here in this figure, you can see there is only four nodes. First node, second node, third node, fourth node. But there are some other types of elements like this one, 8-node structural shell, that is first node, second node, third node, fourth node. And you can see PMNOP type nodes also there. These nodes are called as mid-side nodes. And simple explanation is that this is actually a linear element and this is a quadratic element. The interpolation equation will be a higher order equation. There are triangular elements and also quadrilateral elements. So it depends upon the type of geometry. If our geometry is too much curves are there, we'll go for a 8-node structural shell and a quadrilateral or a triangular type isotropic. Not isotropic, isoparametric formulation. And the inputs which we require for this shell element, that is Young's modulus in x, y, z direction, shear modulus in x, y, y, z and x, z plane, Poisson's ratio in x, y, y, z and x, z planes. Next, how to measure the ply properties. Normally, we up to this slide we actually discussed about how to find out with the help of numerical equations. Mathematical approach we discussed, but from here, I just want to explain how to calculate these material properties with a standard test. Because most of the time, if you are using finite element analysis, the inputs must be a quality input, not quality. So it must be from an accurate background, because generally in FEA we say garbage in and garbage out. That's a term which used in FEA realm. The thing is that whatever you are giving as an input for FEA, finite element analysis, the same thing you will get. If you are giving some blunder data, you will get a blunder results. So the first thing when you are publishing a journal or if you are doing your research, the first thing you have to consider, you must measure your mechanical properties authentically. Either you can do an experiment or you can take it from an authentic journal, which means a peer reviewed or a standard journal. Those data you can take, but I personally prefer to do experiments. Then only you will get the feel how it is calculated, all those things. Normally, we will adopt two standards, ISO or ASTM. ISO, which means International Organization for Standardization. There you will have some composite dimensions, ISO 14125 1998. Actually, to determine the flexural properties, you will use these types of standards. Standards, which means these are actually the dimension to prepare the specimen. Then the second one, ASTM, American Society for Testing Materials, and D638 or ASTM D7205, D7617. These are the the standards which we'll use it for the testing purpose. Normally, if you are using a fiber composite, normally we will use a D638 or DC3031. That is widely adopted for the research, for the academic research purpose, to find out the mechanical properties. And this is the tension test we will do, and we'll get the results. The results, which means we will get the yield strength, then the Young's modulus, and the load deformation curve, which means we can calculate the stress strain curves. We will get from the tension test and compression test. And this is the compression test specimen. This is the tension test specimen. Then this is an in-plane shear test specimens. So all these specimens must have the standards. That means it must be prepared according to these standards. Then only it will be. We cannot use a randomly generated model or a randomly generated dimension to do these tests. So if you do this test, it will be accepted by the science authority. So up to this, I will stop my first session of my presentation. Next, I will move on to the second session, that is how to do this in analysis. That is in a finite element analysis. How can we do this in a practical manner? And before moving into that, I will just touch upon two, three things. How to find out the failure, because for an isotropic material to find out failure, it is an easy business. Because if we do the tension test, we can easily get the yield strength, all those concepts. But to find out the failure of an orthotropic material, we have to rely on some complicated failure theory. Normally, there is actually a trend to find out von Mises stress, that is equivalent stress for a composite material, but it is not correct, because if you are using using composite material for analysis, you must focus on the output, that is the stresses, the principal stresses, and you must adopt some orthotropic failure criteria, that is IVOR, Psi-Hill, or hash impact 2D, 3D, or these types of failure criteria you must adopt, and you then only you will get an accurate results. Otherwise, you will end up in some erroneous outputs. So these are some of the failure indicators, that is LPF, last apply failure, and the composites also have prone to delamination, so it can have interlaminar failure. Then there is a chances for debonding, then wrinkling and core failure. These are some of the failures which we will get it from an analysis software. And some of the results are very difficult to obtain, some of the results very easy. Okay, so I'll wind up my first session. Next, I will show you how to do this in an ANSYS software, that is a proprietary software. 1 second. Before moving into the next session, if you have any doubts, we can have a discussion, small discussion. Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir, it is audible.
Okay. So
Participants, if you want to.
If you have any doubts on this from this presentation, you can ask. We can have a discussion.
Please feel to write your queries in the chat box.
Because why I emphasized more on these concepts, because without knowing this concept, to do FE analysis, it is very difficult. Most of the softwares like ANSYS and Abacus, they will provide us options for properties. You must input Young's modulus, Poisson's ratio shear modulus, and fiber failure limits like orthotropic stress limit and strain limit. But most of the situation, we don't understand what is this inputs. We'll simply put some values there. We'll get some answers. That's not a right way to do the analysis. So that's why I explained what is the concept behind these properties, why we are giving these much properties, or what is the property, what is the significance of each properties. So there is actually a question in the chat box. 1 second. Without doing the experiments to find out the properties, is it possible to predict how a composite will behave based on the data available? Sure. If you have the properties of the constituent materials like fiber and the matrix properties, you can calculate. That's why I explained the concepts. There are more equations available. The basic one, it's rules of mixture. With the help of rules of mixture, you can calculate the composite properties. It's actually prediction. The most accurate prediction, the most accurate equation to predict these mechanical properties is periodic microstructure. But to calculate the coefficients and the constants to use with the periodic microstructure, it is very difficult. So that's why I personally don't prefer periodic microstructure. But Halpian Psi equations, the data are available in most of the journals, so you can use it. Okay. Oh, it's in the atomic level. Okay, atomic level, normally it is, it is actually another area of composite. We can use it, but most of the time it will be used for, I think it's for particulate material. So in a fiber reinforced material, all those concepts, we will, a microscopic approach is enough. So that's why we don't go into the atomic level. It's there. If you are studying about the interfaces, definitely you need atomic level type concepts. But FEA analysis, it's not the atomic. It is not used for atomic level. That's why we don't use it here. We only use it for microscopic or mesoscopic or microscopic. So finite element analysis not for something which is very, very small. It is actually for something which is large from our analysis perspective. Okay. Okay, I will share my next computer. 1 second. Screen is visible. Is it visible?
Yes, it is visible.
Okay. Okay. So this is ANSYS software. If how many of you are familiar with the ANSYS software before starting the analysis, practical one? So I want to know how many of you are familiar with ANSYS software, especially ANSYS Workbench, not APDL. There are two versions of ANSYS, not two. There are 4 versions actually. The familiar ones are 2 versions. One is APDL, the other one is Workbench. Okay, so ANSYS is actually 1 second. I'll close my first laptop. Okay, so hello.
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Okay, this is actually ANSYS software. You can start it from here. So if you type Workbench, you can see the ANSYS version, and if you type APDL, you can.
Ranjit sir, it is not audible. Are you speaking something? Ranjit sir?
Sorry, എൻ്റെ ലാപ്ടോപ്പ് ക്ലോസ് ആയതുകൊണ്ട്. So am I audible now?
Yes, now you are audible.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is actually, I actually completed 3 types of analysis. The first one with an isotropic material, the second one with the orthotropic material, third one with the orthotropic material with the ANSYS ACP. That is the similar manner how we create a composite material. So I'll open the first one. This is actually the engineering data, and before discussing about this one, I just want to give you an introduction about FEA. The FEA, we will have 3 stages of if you want to do analysis, there are 3 stages. The first one, preprocessor, solver, post-processor. Preprocessor, which means we have to give the material properties, we have to select the elements, we have to give the boundary conditions, all those things we have to give. And solver, that is the solution, that is with the help of matrix iteration techniques we will solve the matrix. And post-processor, after the solution we only get a matrix of numbers, so it is very difficult to read that numbers to find out whether there is any failure, all those things. So that's why we will convert that numbers into some legible outputs, like visualization concepts we will use. We'll convert that numbers into contours or graphs. So that area is called as a post-processor area. So preprocessor, solver, and post-processor. If you take any software, this is the methodology we will adopt. If you take Abacus also, there will be preprocessor, solver, and post-processor. So in preprocessor, you have to give 4 things. The first one, material properties. The second one, geometry. Third one, discretization, that is mesh. And the fourth one, the boundary conditions. So if you open engineering data in ANSYS software, you can see a material is there. This is actually isotropic material. So that's why there is only one input. This is actually related to fatigue and other types of analysis. So for our analysis, we only require this isotropic elasticity. If we delete all other things, there won't be anything. It won't tamper with my analysis. So this is not required actually. So this is isotropic material. So only Young's modulus and Poisson's ratio is required. This Mulk modulus and shear modulus is given, but it is calculated with our the relationship equations between Young's modulus, Poisson's ratio, or with the elastic constants. So it is steel, so 2 into 10 raised to 11 Pascal, and 0.3 is the Poisson's ratio. And the model, if you open the model, one second. Okay, this is the model. If you open the model, you will get that complete analysis sections. That is, you can see this is our geometry. That is, I created the geometry with the help of, it is a shell element or the surface element which is not having thickness. So we can give the thickness. It is actually a virtual input which will be utilized in our stiffness matrix. See, in the earlier lecture, I explained the stiffness matrix. So there will be, in that equation, there is an option to input this area. So the thickness. So we will give it as a thickness there. So it's actually a virtual thickness. And after the solid shell body, that is surface body, we will go for discretization. Discretization, which means we will divide this into small elements. And the concept behind FE is nothing but we will divide the geometry into small pieces, and we will do analysis. That is advanced mechanics of solids equations on these each element we will do. And after doing it, we will do some interpolation function to find out what is inside that element. In fact, this is actually happened simultaneously. So the matrix is created by combining these interpolation functions and the D matrix, that is advanced mechanics of solid equations. So the concept is that we will simply divide into small elements. We will solve we will solve equations on each of these elements. We will get a combined result after the solution. That's the trick behind FEA. So this is the splitting, that is discretization. Discretization, it's actually a word which is used by FEA engineers, but in simple terms, we can see we will divide this into small pieces, because most of the time engineers want to create some jargons, or want to create some impact on the audience. We will most of the time they will use these types of complicated words. So it's nothing but it's simply a piece of this material. So normally it is called as an element, and the division of this geometry into pieces is called as discretization. Then this is the boundary condition which I gave. We have boundary condition, which means if you want to do a tensile test, one end of the piece is fixed, the other end you will apply some force. The same concept applies here. One end of the shell, the surface is fixed. You can see this is the fixed support. The other support, I'm actually given a displacement. This is what is called as a strain controlled method. Strain controlled method, which means you will give the displacements. So I have minus 0.3 millimeter as my displacement. So irrespective of the forces, it will push in this direction up to 0.3 millimeter. So that's the concept here. Either I can specify the load here as a force, or as a displacement control method. Any method is suitable, but related to FEA, the displacement control method is most suitable, because it will fetch you a lesser convergence issues. And by solving, actually I already solved it, but I changed the material property. That's why the solution cleared. Only small time it will take, I think. Yeah, it's solved. Yeah, sorry. Second. So this is it. This is actually the total deformation and equivalent stress for an isotropic material. So you can see this is how we calculate the failure for the material. To calculate the failure, we will go for failure criteria, which is named as a von Mises failure criteria. That is equivalent stress criteria, where we can see, if you look into the graph, you can see the stresses are increased from 73 to 908 MPa, and it's steel. Actually, it will withstand up to 265 MPa. So where it crosses this 265, so if you look into the maximum value, you can see it's crossed at after the 0.2 seconds. That is 272 MPa. It reached 272 MPa after 30% of the load is applied, displacement is applied. So if you go into the force reaction, and you can see at the second step 5 kilonewton force is applied. So after 5 kilonewton it is failed. So that's the concept which we can obtain from this equivalent stress contours and graphs. So this is the way in industry we will find out the failure loads and all these concepts, failure stress, all those concepts. But there is another way. We can also incorporate the plasticity values, like a bilinear isotropic modeling and multilinear isotropic modeling. A lot of plasticity modeling concepts are there. You can incorporate that to find out the failure with the help of the plasticity conditions incorporated in the FEA analysis. So, but this is the easiest way, because we can easily get, and the solution time is far better when we compare, far less when we compare with the actual plasticity formulation inside the FEA. And the next one, this is with the orthotropic material. If you open the engineering data, you can see the same structural steel is there, but I added two composite materials. One is carbon fiber. So if you open the carbon fiber, you can see the it requires 9 constants. That is, even though we are assuming it is a transversely isotropic material or orthotropic material, we have to give 9 constants. One second. There is one question in the chat box. What was that? Is this composite? Is this composite or matrix phase? It's actually, hello, 1 second. It is actually the composite phase. These properties actually for composite phase. We can use it as, we can use these properties for laminas or solid models. whatever, because the difference is that this is actually a property calculation, or the calculated properties we are simply inputting here. We can go for we can use it as a use it for a shell element or a solid element or a line element. It's not an issue. This question is that is this composite or matrix trace? This is actually the calculation based on composite, and normally if we apply these equations into a laminar, this will be automatically transferred to a laminar phase. Okay, if you are applying this into a solid model, this will become a composite one, and if you are applying to a laminar, this will become a laminar type. If you are applying to a one-dimensional one, this will become an isotropic one, because one-dimensional there it will consider only one direction. So Young's modulus in X and Poisson's ratio, no, it won't take Poisson's ratio, it will only take Young's modulus in X direction. So whatever the properties which we are giving, we can convert that into one-dimensional or two-dimensional or three-dimensional, not an issue. Okay. So in the second material, this is actually provided with some failure criteria, which means we can find out the failures if some stresses are increased. So the orthotropic elasticity is given. We need 9 constants, that is Young's modulus in 3 directions, Poisson's ratio in 3 directions, and a shear modulus in 3 directions. And similarly, these are the failure theories. These properties are based on failure theories, because within the elastic limit, if you want to calculate something, this is enough. But if you are above or if you want to calculate the failure, you need to give the elastic stress limit. It is also required. This is actually for Sahil criterion. 9 constants are required. Tensile X, that is tensile strength in X direction, tensile strength in Y direction, Z direction, compressive in X, Y, Z, shear XY, YZ, and XZ. Similarly, one more is there, orthotropic strain limits are there. So here we will specify the stresses to calculate the failure. We will utilize stress to calculate, and here we will use strain to calculate the failure. And similarly, Zyvo constants is also there. That is actually the modification of Sahil with some weightage fractions. So these are different types of failure criteria which we will use it to find out the failure. Okay. So next one, I also solved that problem. So there will be a difference in results. If you compare 2 results, you can see the difference in isotropic and orthotropic results, orthotropic material properties. 1 second. It will take some time to pop up. Okay. So this is the total deformation and this is the equivalent stress. So if you compare this with the previous results, you can see the difference. So this is 1 second. Can you see the difference? So this is, and if you compare the stress levels, you can see 496 is the stress, maximum stress level. It obviously it will also depends upon the material properties which we gave for the analysis. And obviously you can see the stress distribution, and if you closely observe the stress distribution, you can see an important thing. The stress distribution is very low at the edges and centrally it is located. If it is an actual design, if you want to use it for any industrial applications, if you provide some strengthening concepts like a stiffness or something in this area, you can easily make it safe. Obviously if you are using it the material is carbon fiber, you don't have to worry about this 496 because it's orthotropic stress limit is I think 805 something, 805 MPa. If you go to orthotropic stress limit, you can see it's 805, so it's far below our limit. So obviously it is safe, but if you want further safety, if you want to increase the factor of safety, you can provide some extra features here. That's how the design proceeds. And the next one, it is with the help of an ACP, which means ANSYS composite prepost. So ANSYS composite prepost is used for it's actually dedicated software to create the composite materials, and irrespective of the material, ANSYS will calculate with the help of this rules of mixture, ANSYS will calculate the composite properties, and that will be inputted to the analysis. That's the beauty of ACP. And if you open engineering data, there is nothing much different between the previous analysis and this analysis. You can see the same materials. Structural steel is supplied, carbon fiber is applied, and two carbon fibers are there. One is without the failure criteria, the other with the failure criteria informations. And if you open the geometry, it is also similar geometry. But if you open the model, you cannot see the solution, all those things, solution or results, those things, because this discretized model or the discretized domain which is given to the ACP module. So that's the difference. So wait, okay, 1 second. So you can see there is only mesh is given. So there is no solution or boundary conditions. All those things are not here. So you will simply create the mesh and you will close it, and this mesh will be given to ACP. So this is ACP. Okay, this is ACP. And here you can create the fabrics and stack ups. So here I created this fabric with the epoxy carbon woven material, and you can specify the thickness, and even you can specify the cost if you want to calculate the cost price of the composite. And this is used for industry to calculate how much price is there. If they want to set the price per square feet, you will use this module, this area. And this is actually a lamina we are creating. That is the name which we give here. It is fabric 1. So fabric 1, it's a lamina, and this fabric 1 will be used to create laminates. It is a combination of laminas, and it is called as stack ups. So if you update here, you can see the stack ups. So here I created fabric 1, which means with the help of orthotropic material, that is carbon fiber. So fabric 1, fabric 2, and fabric 5 fabric 1s are given to create the stack ups. And I gave angles here. Is there any disturbance in my voice? Hello, Reggie sir?
No, it's clear, sir.
Okay. So it's actually raining outside, that's why. So this is the angle provided here, because in my previous session I show you we can provide the laminates in different angles. That is 0 angle, 30 degree, 45 degree, 60 degree, 90 degree. It's purely depends upon our requirement. For example, I only required strength in X direction. Maybe I can provide most of the fabrics in fiber direction. That is, I can provide it as 0 angles for majority of the fabrics. And if I want a distributed strength, that is strength distributed evenly in directions, that is in X and Y, so we can provide an angle like this. Or if you're having multiple layers, you can provide with a 10, 20, 30 degree angles. So that will give you fetch you more evenly distributed strength. And this is how we create the thickness, the laminate. The first one we will create the lamina, the second one we will create the laminate, and the third one we will create the element set, which means how many elements we want to consider for our analysis. Normally it will take shell elements, so here I gave it as all elements. If you want to change this element size, there is a trick in ANSYS Workbench. You can create a a named selection in ANSYS geometry or meshing. So that will be transported here as the elements. So here I simply take it as all elements, and the geometry is there. And if you want to import an external geometry, you can use this one. And the second important thing, this represents all elements which he created inside the mesh. This represents its name is rosette. Rosette represents the fiber direction, how the fibers are oriented, or what direction we will take as a principal direction, that is represented by rosette. If you click the rosette, one second, you can see the X, Y, Z direction. Normally Y direction it will take as a fiber direction. Okay. And there will be one more thing, oriented selection set. Actually, oriented selection set refers to the ply direction. That is how the laminas are kept over it. For example, first we will have a lamina, then over that we will put another lamina. So that direction we want to specify it here, oriented selection set. So the main important thing here, that is two things. First, a rosette and the oriented selection set. Rosette we will specify the fiber direction. Oriented selection set we will specify the lamina direction. Where in what direction the laminas are providing or putting. Then there are two options. First, you have to specify a point, so from where you are creating it, and the second you have to create the direction where it is applying. Okay. Then after completing the directions, if you activate these things, you can see the fiber orientation, all those things. If you select the solid model, one second. So this is the normal direction and this is the orientation, and you can also show the fiber direction, and you can also show the oriented direction. This is represented the oriented direction, that is the vertical one. Fiber direction, actually it is when I created this one, it is actually in the opposite direction. I just want in the horizontal direction, but unfortunately it's in the perpendicular direction. Okay. So after creating, you can create a modeling group. Which means we created the lamina and the laminate, and we want to create or convert that into a shell composite data or a solid composite data. So this is created with the help of this modeling group. Here you can see all the plies you created, because I created stack up with the 5 plies. I think 5 plies. One second. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plies. So these are the 5 plies, and I can also alter the angles if you want from here. And after that, I will create a solid model, and this solid model also consisting of these plies. Up to this, we can create we can create two things: the shell composite data, which means that will be inputted into ANSYS as a shell element or shell element data. The second one, solid element data. So that's a difference. And remaining is actually the post processor, that is analysis type, that is plybook parameters, all those things. And one more option ANSYS provides, that option is if you want to consider a parameter, if you want to change the number of elements or number of stack ups, you can set it as a parameter. That option is given here. Due to the time limitation, I'm not going to explain that concept. Okay, but this parameter is used to do that thing. To automate our analysis, we will use this parameter. Okay. 1 second, there is actually chat. We need after this session, I will explain you. I will answer to your queries. Okay. Is it okay? Okay. So this is a you can do more about the you can alter more concepts, more properties here, but this is the basic one. You can alter with the help of this ANSYS ACP. And if you close it, you will get a tick mark here. That means it's updated and every solid data is okay. Then after that, if you open the model, that is, this is the actual workbench, and it will give you the same interface as previous analysis. Just like this interface, you will get the same interface. You will get the same interface, but the difference is that you can see an imported ply section here. This is not available with the previous one. You can see there is no ply section available, but here you can see imported plies, and if you open that, you can see your 5 plies. Okay, so these are the 5 plies, and the same boundary conditions. One end is fixed, the other end I provided with a displacement. A displacement is provided. The same boundary conditions. The results are actually scale down. So the results are a bit different than the previous one. If you take the orthotropic results, this is the result. If you scale it down, if you go to true scale, it will only show the expansion and contraction. If you animate it, you can see it. If you scale it high, you can see the animation. So it's only contracting this direction. But if you use orthotropic, sorry, ACP, you can see the animation. 1 second. So it's more realistic, because if you use composite, there will be some kind of draping, some kind of stress distribution will be there between the laminas. So that will happen here. And the equivalent stress distribution is different, because it will be different for different plies. For example, if you give a layered one, that is, if you calculate here, you can see this is the total variation, and if you closely observe, you can see the variation with respect to plies, and you are interested in each and every plies, you can create the results according to the plies. If you go to plies, and for example, I want the first ply, what is the stress, apply, and if you evaluate that, you'll get the stress result for the first ply. And if you want to create the second ply, you will get the second ply results. The results are varying. You can see here the variation in the results are here. And if you want to analyze layer wise, that is, you want to visualize which layer this is happening. So first layer, if you give the equivalent stress for first layer, it will show you the first layer stress distribution. And if you give second layer, it will give you second layer, and the last layer, that is the fifth layer. If you provide the fifth layer, you will get the fifth layer results. And more than fifth, there is no sixth layer. If I give sixth layer, that will show you invalid something. So there is no layer, so that's why it's 0, 0. Okay. So 1 second. This is the outputs provided, but equivalent stress, which means it's based on von Mises failure criteria. So most of the time we don't use von Mises failure criteria for our analysis. That's why we will go for ANSYS post, which is post processor that is used to find out the failure criteria with respect to the orthotropic material behavior. So I'll show you that also, but unfortunately this is not failed, so the results will be a bit different from the presentation. One second. Yeah, if you go to the definitions, you can create a failure criteria. So if you open that, you can create the failure criteria. You can create a maximum strain, maximum stress, ZIVU, whatever the information which we provided on the first session, that is engineering data. That type of failures you can provide here, and you can also compare that with isotropic material criteria, that is von Mises failure criteria. You can also compare that with the weighting factors, and if you apply it here and if you update, you'll get the failure. Okay, the value is actually between, it's shown between 0 to 1, and the value here it is 1.7096 and 1.617. That is the value provided here, and this is actually from the time frequency 9. So I will change that. 1 second. So to get that the outputs, if you open the solutions from if you open the solutions, you can see the solutions, and you can also create solutions from this for this. And for the values, I created it for the last 0.9 seconds. So I'll change that into last seconds, and if I apply it here, and if I search for the failure criteria, I can see the failure criteria values here. And if I want to find out the stresses, actually there is no point to find out stresses here because we will get it from the workbench. So if you want to do it here, just go to show, you will get the stress distribution in this. And this from this failure also, you'll get which failure criteria is the more the dominating one. That you will also get those types of concepts from this one. And so this is the this is how we will use ANSYS POST. And but I don't recommend this POST processor because most of the time when we are doing research, we have to create our own failure criteria. That is that I will also explain. That is, this is actually an easy method. If you're working in an industry, you can easily create this one. You can simply say this is okay, this is okay, this is not failed. You can say something like that. But if you're doing an academic research, you have to create the failure criteria manually because you will get a feel. That is how it is acting, where it is going to fail. All those things you can calculate. So I'll also show that also. If you go to results, there is one option provided, user defined results. Okay, so here you can provide the results. For example, I'm actually taking the principal stress S1. S1 is a command for principal stresses, and output stress. 1 second, stress, and if I evaluate that, so I'll get the principal stress output. So I can multiply this S1 with some value, for example, 1.25. So this will be an elevated the increased value. And why I used 1.25, because there are the Sai-Hill failure criteria and the von Mises failure criteria, Sai-Wu failure criteria. These failure criteria are developed, or it is actually a modification of von Mises failure criteria. There will be constants like F11, F12, F22, F66. The constants will be there, and if you want to find out the constants, what you will do, you will find out the principal stresses, that is sigma 1, sigma 2, and shear tau 1, 2, and you will apply some boundary condition that must be less than the material generated, that is load generated stresses. Material dependent stresses, that is sigma 1 must be less than, if you take the pure plane stress concept for a composite material, sigma 1 must be less than the material strength or equal to material strength. That is actually a point where after that point it will fail, and below that point it is safe, that concept. And sigma 2 will be perpendicular direct. We will take it for perpendicular direction, that must be lower than the strength in that direction, perpendicular direction. Similarly, the shear stress must be, that is tau 1, 2 must be less than the shear stress limit, shear strength for that particular material. So from these calculations, we can actually calculate the values of F11, F12, all those things, and you can formulate this F11, F12 as an equation here. And if you formulate this equation, you know how it is calculating and what is happening this in this POST processor, that you will know about that because you created that. So this way you will get a feel how this is acting and what is the complications with these things. You will get an experience to that, and this way you'll get a more insight about the failure criteria for composite materials, because most of the failure criteria, it's a modification of the isotropic material failure criteria. But some failure criteria, there are still researchers are going on to get the accurate, to match with the experimental results. So to do research on that area, you have to formulate your own failure criteria. Okay. And this is all about my presentation. And if you have any doubts or discussions, we can have it now related to the software or related to composites.
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay.
Participants, feel free to discuss with the resource person. You may post your queries through the chat box. So there's one question pending
There's one
from
question in the chat. Okay. Can we make a tailored microstructure of a composite by choosing matrix and proper reinforcements using another software? Yeah, there is actually softwares for that, but it's not used for, I think 90% sure that it is not used for finite element analysis. Mainly, you can separate it as two sections. First section will calculate the material properties with the help of microstructure or atomic level or whatever equations you can create it or you can calculate it. And the second section in finite element analysis, it only requires anisotropic or orthotropic or isotropic material details. So this is like two areas. So first area, you can calculate the mechanical properties. Either you can calculate from an experiment or you can calculate it from the equations. Whatever may be that equation, that is maybe it's a microstructure calculations or a mesoscale approach, whatever the equations, you can use it there. And after completing that, you can come into the finite element analysis. So in finite element analysis, we will basically inquire about the properties. And one more thing, if you know the differential equations, that is generally ANSYS and Abacus, this won't be available. But if you are programming it using Python or MATLAB, you can create your own stiffness matrix if you know the differential equation. That is that relates between the microstructure related calculations to the FEA. You can formulate your own element and you can use the finite element analysis to relate between the microstructure related calculations and this one. But the problem with that, the computation time and the stiffness matrix, most of the time the iterations will end up in convergence issues, because that's a challenge with the user defined elements. So you have to clear it down. You have to clear you have to find it. Where are the errors? What are the errors? And what happens when we solve it mathematically? All those things will be your headache. Okay. Any more queries related to this?
Participant having any queries, you can share with the speaker now.
The time is actually 3:37. 4 o'clock. The workshop is scheduled up to 4 o'clock. So if there is no queries, I will show you another one. That is the difference between static analysis and transient one. And before that, if you have any queries, we'll have a discussion. Or I will show you one more analysis trick. That is, if you most of the time, I think if you are getting an academic related license, ICP is not provided with that. I don't know about the 2021 version or 2020, but most of the time academic version, this ACP is not provided. So if you want to do analysis with the ACP, there is one more trick I will show you. So if you go to the model, there is one project or model. Oh, yeah. If you go to insert, there is one option for layered construction. Layered section. This is the option. So you'll get the same layered section which is created similar to which is created by ACP. So the problem is that you must select the geometry surface. So the geometry will be acting as a solid there. So this solid, over this solid, you can provide your layers, that is your composite. So you can assume it as a mold and the composite. Then you can specify the coordinate system. You can either you can create your own coordinate system, or you can simply take the body coordinate system. And there is an option for worksheet. If you go to worksheet, it will provide us to give the analysis materials. Actually, if you are familiar with the APDL, this is a trick to create the material, that is composite material. So if you go to add layer, if you right click, you can add layers. If you add layer, you can add different materials here. So you can add carbon fiber or epoxy, whatever be the material, and you can also specify the material thickness, 0.2 mm. And you can add multiple layers below that. If you are not interested in the row set, that is if your analysis is not significant with respect to row set, or we can say if your row set or oriented selection set or the direction of ply is not significant or is not going to interfere with your analysis outputs, you can use this approach because it's a simple and it will give you easy solution. And you can create a multiple material if you want. For example, I am creating with the carbon fiber, steel, and multiple materials. And I can also create it for different angles, 0, 45, the orientation angles. Sorry, 0, 30, 45, 60, and 90. And specify the thickness. You can also vary the thickness if you want, 0.2. So this is the way to simulate the same thing which we created with the help of ACP. So this way also we can create the results. If you solve it, you will get the results that will be a bit vary from the previous results, because there we actually we will actually interfere with the orientations, the fiber orientations, and the laminate position, everything we can change. But here simply you can control the materials and the thickness and the orientation angle only. So no orientation with respect to the fibers or with respect to the laminate. And if you solve it, you will get the results. And it is also, one second, give you the almost the same results, but if you go to TrueScale, you can see there is only small inclination. But if you model it as a ply one with the help of ACP, that will give you a realistic result. Okay. And one more thing, if you want to do it as a transient analysis, that is the difference between static analysis and transient analysis. In static analysis, we will solve the force equilibrium equations. But in transient analysis, we will solve the equations with respect to time, that is mx double dot plus kx plus cx dot is equal to a forcing function. That equation we will solve. So there the time dependency is more. For example, if you take the static analysis, you can see if you go to analysis settings, my analysis end time is 1 second. That is, if I give displacement, that will end up in 1 second, or 1 second it will be applied completely. So this type of loading in FE8 is called as a ramped type loading. Ramped type loading, which means for example, say the displacement reached only 0.5 seconds. It passed to 0.5 seconds, which means 50% of the displacement is there. That is, if my final displacement is 0.3, if I take 0.5 seconds, that will be 0.15 millimeter displacement. That is only applied. And this does not matter if I change the time to 1 second or 10 second or 10,000 seconds. The results will be same for a static analysis. But if it is a transient analysis, you can simply change that with the help of this tool, replace with and go to transient analysis, transient structural. It will change automatically to a transient analysis. And there I change that into 1 second or 0.1 second or microseconds, there will be a significant change in my results because the force is going to vary with respect to the time. If you reduce your time, that is 1 second into microseconds, which means say 1 into 10 raised to minus 3 seconds, obviously the force will be transformed into an impact force, because the force will be calculated with respect to that time, and the force will be treated as an impact force, and the results will be depends upon the impact force concept. Okay, so if you open that, you can see the difference in initial conditions. You can see two differences. The first one, initial condition, there you can specify the velocity, because this is not an impact type problem. You don't have to specify any velocity. The second one, if you go to analysis settings and if you change the time, you can see the time steps. That is how it is changing. And if I change this to some other value, obviously there will be a difference in this, the difference in the deformation and occurrence stresses. Okay, thank you. I'll stop my presentation here because now it's Bakri. So even though it's 4:30, we are actually winding it's early. So Reggie sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay.
It was a very nice and informative session. Participants, you may post your queries in the chat box if any. Also, please fill out the feedback for session 3 for day 1. The link has been posted in the chat box.
If you have any doubts related to the finite element analysis also, you can ask. Or if you have any doubts related to any other software like Abacus, we can have a discussion.
I assume there is no more questions pending.
Okay, sir.
And, thank you very much, sir. The session was very fruitful.
Participant, please see the feedback.